This scene feels like something truly majestic, as if the ocean itself has stopped being just chaos and turned into a living force of judgment and meaning, where every wave crashing against the ships feels like it carries the weight of every choice these characters have ever made, and where the storm is not just a backdrop for battle, but a presence that seems to understand exactly what is happening, and silently decide what is fair. Today we'll find out. Why this scene? First, let's provide a little context. Before this moment, Pirates of the Caribbean, at World's End, has been building a world where moral lines slowly stop making sense in a traditional way, because what initially looks like a simple divide between pirates and civilized forces gradually transforms into something far more complex, where the East India Trading Company presents itself as lawful, structured, and righteous, yet increasingly reveals a cold mechanical worldview that values control over humanity, while the pirates, despite their violence, selfishness, and chaos, begin to feel unexpectedly principled in comparison, because their world is not built on abstract systems, but on personal codes, loyalty, betrayal, and survival that are painfully human in their imperfection. And as these forces move toward their final confrontation, the audience starts to feel that morality itself is being redefined in real time. As the final battle unfolds inside the maelstrom, the ocean becomes a rotating catastrophe where reality itself feels unstable. And yet within that instability, there is a strange sense of order emerging, because every faction is now acting according to its true nature, not its declared identity. And this is where perception begins to shift completely, because the so-called good side, represented by authority and law, no longer feels inherently right, since its actions are driven by domination and control, while the pirates, who were once seen as purely destructive, begin to appear more human, not because they are morally pure, but because they are honest in their contradictions, because they fight for freedom, for loyalty, for personal meaning, even when those things lead them into violence and moral compromise. And in that contrast, we start to understand that goodness here is not about appearance or labels, but about the emotional and ethical truth behind each action. Before the hero takes the next step, hit like and subscribe to the channel. Thanks. What makes this transformation so powerful is how the characters force us to constantly reevaluate them, because every act of betrayal or sacrifice changes the way we perceive their morality, and Jack Sparrow, Will Turner, and Elizabeth Swann all exist in this unstable moral space where they cannot be reduced to simple categories, since their decisions are driven by shifting combinations of self-interest, love, duty, and instinct, and even when those decisions appear selfish or reckless, they often lead to outcomes that feel strangely balanced in the larger picture, as if the world itself is absorbing their flaws and turning them into part of a greater equilibrium. As the battle intensifies, the conflict between the two sides becomes less about who is good or bad, and more about what kind of world is being defended. Because one side is trying to impose absolute order at the cost of individuality, while the other side exists in chaos but preserves something essential about human freedom. Even if that freedom is messy, dangerous, and morally inconsistent, and in the middle of this destruction, the viewer begins to realize that the pirates, despite everything wrong about them, operate within a kind of emotional logic that feels more grounded than the rigid certainty of their enemies. And that realization completely changes the emotional alignment of the story. And when everything converges in the heart of the storm, where ships are breaking apart and alliances are collapsing under pressure, there is a growing sense that what we are witnessing is not random destruction, but a form of resolution, because every character is pushed into the final consequence of who they have chosen to be. And even though not everyone survives or succeeds in the traditional sense, there is a powerful feeling that nothing is wasted, that every action has found its place, and that the chaos of the sea has somehow revealed a deeper fairness beneath it all, where justice is not about punishment or reward, but about inevitability and truth. That's why this scene feels so majestic, because it completely dissolves the simple idea of heroes and villains and replaces it with something far more honest, where pirates feel human because they live by imperfect principles, where authority feels dangerous because it hides behind order, and where the final battle doesn't feel like a collapse of meaning, but like the moment when meaning finally becomes clear, even through destruction, and in the end everything feels like it has returned to its rightful place. Not in a perfect way, but in a way that feels undeniably earned. And that's exactly why this moment stay with you for the rest of your life.